No! Don't do it.
Nobody will come to your funeral when you die. This also...
Yeah, that was good.
You're not a web developer, you're an idiot. So you go on YouTube and you find an Indian man to explain HTML and CSS to you for the next 10 hours.
Really enjoyed that video. Hello, fellow humans, and welcome to Computer Science for Humans. I forgot my intro. A channel about learning programming as regular human beings. Not robots, just regular plebeians. I don't know. Programming for regular folks is what we do here, because I'm a regular dude. I just happen to also be a programmer. So today we are doing something a little bit different, and there's this great video that I want to watch with you guys. I'm not going to show the whole video because you should go watch it on his channel. I've enjoyed what I've seen of his channel. I'll have a link down in the description below, maybe in a card too if I can figure out how those work. But the video is called The 7 Levels of Programming, and I'm actually really excited to see what he says the 7 levels of programming are. I haven't seen the video yet. I saw the thumbnail and the title. It's like, oh, that'd be fun to talk about. So here we are. Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Press the YouTube buttons down below. You know how that works. It really helps the channel and it makes sure you see more stuff like it.
Level 0, Scratch. Just because you drag blocks around on a screen doesn't make you a programmer. Nobody will take you seriously, you can't get a job from it, and nobody will come to your funeral when you die. This also...
Yeah, that was good. This is interesting because I thought for a while that Scratch would be a fantastic way to learn the language. And if you see my tier list, I have it as like S tier for learning languages. Since then, I've looked more into it, and it's not bad. It teaches you some concepts, but it doesn't look like it's actually as easy to use as I thought it was. And it'd probably be better to just learn an actual programming language. There's that. But yeah, level 0 being Scratch, fair enough. I don't know if I have much to add on that one, other than just it doesn't have to be Scratch. Level 0 can be just about anything. I feel like what he's describing is very much applicable to almost any programming language.
Also applies to people who use Wix to design a website and then they put web developer on their CV. You're not a web developer, you're an idiot.
Spicy. I don't think they're idiots. I know he's just saying that for comic effect partially. Learning Wix or WordPress, or well, I guess WordPress has a little more coding, but learning Wix or or Squarespace or any of those definitely does not equate to having experience in web development, web design probably. Sure. And Wix can have some web development stuff. They actually have a developer setting you can turn on where you can write JavaScript code for your website. So I'm sure the other ones do too. So there is potentially coding involved. I think web developer generally is such a vague term that it can quite easily include people who just use Wix or similar stuff to build your websites. But yeah. I wouldn't say they're idiots, just not necessarily great at programming.
So you go on YouTube and you find an Indian man to explain HTML and CSS to you for the next 10 hours. Congratulations.
That is so true, though. That is so true. Oh, man. Actually, funny story, the reason I started my channel in the first place was because I was tired of all of the tutorials being people with really strong Indian accents. Nothing against Indians or their accents, just that I wanted to be able to have tutorials that were easier to understand for me. And so I figured I would have to make them. Yeah.
You're now a programmer, but remember you're only at level 1. At this stage you probably still have a social life, girls still speak to you and you don't smell. But don't worry, all of that is about to change.
I mean, I'm married, so.
Level 2. Beginner. Eventually you'll get bored of
You don't have to give up on friendships and relationships just because you're a programmer. That is very false, and it is a stereotype. And again, I know he's being funny, and it is very funny. His delivery is great too, but that's just straight up not true. I don't know if like most programmers are married, but a significant portion of programmers I've known at least are married and have been for a long time. So there's nothing about being a programmer that means you can't find love. That's funny though. And there's definitely nothing about being a programmer that means you can't shower. So please don't be that guy.
I was only 14 at the time, but at this level, I would stay up all night just to code.
Dude, I wish I'd started at 14. I had some exposure to it a little bit when I was probably in high school, just learning some really basic HTML stuff. I didn't actually learn real programming until college. Didn't really even understand that it existed, even though I had learned some of it. It's kind of funny, but yeah, I would have loved to start that early.
At this point, you'll be introduced to object-oriented programming, and you'll either love it or hate it. I hated it.
If you go to school for programming, you're probably going to start out with object-oriented programming. OOP is one of those things that people either really, really like it or really, really don't. It's very divisive. I personally think that the reason people who hate it is because the person who taught it to them was bad at teaching. And I think all you really need is a willingness to learn plus a decent teacher. And it's object-oriented programming is not that hard. There are some nuances to it that can be confusing. That's true about literally every skill, so it's not really saying much. But yeah, most people do either love or hate object-oriented programming. I think it's fine. I hate functional programming personally, so procedural is fine. I hate functional programming. Not all of it though, as I'm thinking about it, just certain parts of it. So
about everything I knew about programs, and it created them in a paradigm which just made no sense to me.
Yeah, this is because he went from being self-taught to learning an actual structure for how to write programs. That's always going to be hard because people who have been building off of an established legacy, they have all these traditions and stuff that they're going to be using. And if you kind of made it up as you went because you were teaching yourself, learning from a random Indian man on the internet does count as teaching yourself, by the way. Because all he's doing is telling you information. It's your job to actually do something with it. If you learn that way, you build your own kind of traditions in your mind, and then you come into a school context or work context or whatever, where you have to start learning a new paradigm for how to think about this stuff. And that is hard. And that's one reason I usually don't suggest people start out on JavaScript if they have plans to be a very high level programmer at any point. Because going from JavaScript as your main, like the way you think about things, to another language, like say Java or C or C++ or any of those more object-oriented programming languages, it's really tough. It's a very tough transition to make because JavaScript is very much a teach yourself paradigm kind of language. Like if the learn on the internet methodology created a language, that language is JavaScript. JavaScript taught itself programming. Yeah, I like that. Java is the teach yourself programming language pretty much. And so going from that, JavaScript, and going from that to something like Java that is very much not a teach yourself programming language with all these tools that they have for organizing your thoughts, which if you're not used to organizing your thoughts, or if you have a different way of organizing your thoughts, it's very confusing. It's just a lot. Whereas if you start with something like Java or C or C++ or whatever, where you kind of have to organize your thoughts, and then you go to JavaScript or something like that where you don't have to organize anymore, that's a really easy transition. It's like, oh, it's the same thing, but now there aren't all these other things I have to keep in mind. I've seen this with lots and lots of people. Several of my students are kind of like this too, where they started out in something like JavaScript and kind of taught themselves, and then they get to object-oriented programming and their brain just doesn't want it. And you can't learn something you don't want to learn. Like, it's not something you can do. So yeah, I would very much say this is a side effect of the way he learned rather than anything else. I mean, and he said, that he just hates it. But in my experience from the people I've known, the only people who hate object-oriented programming are there's like two kinds of people who hate object-oriented programming. I mean, hate, not like not really care for it, but like actually hate it. And it's either self-taught people who were then forced to use object-oriented programming like him, or people who are like super high intellect programmers and they've evolved beyond the need for object-oriented programming. I've got some friends like that. The Primogen, I think, is like that. Several others. So like, yeah, for the people in the middle, I think if you're not self-taught, if you learned in college, you probably started on object-oriented programming, I think it's good. I think it's decent. Is it perfect? No, of course not. Nothing is. But I don't think object-oriented programming is actually bad. I think people just don't like putting the effort in to learn it. Or they had a bad teacher who didn't actually teach it to them and expected them to know it anyway, and that'll ruin any subject.
Expert programmer, then right back to the basics in just one day. Many people quit here.
That feeling of feeling like an expert programmer and then going right back to the basics in just one day also tells me he probably only knew one language. I could be wrong, but that's just the feeling of learning a new language. It's you become a complete beginner again for a day or two, sometimes a week or two, depending on the language. You can see an example of that in my in my Rust video where I learned Rust in a day. Definitely went back to being a beginner in some ways, and you'll see even more of that. I don't know if it's before or after, but whenever my Zig video comes out where I'm trying to learn Zig in one day, very much reverted to being a beginner again. And it's part of the learning process. So it's not something to get stressed about. You're gonna, no matter what you do in your life, if you're not trying to be stagnant, if you're actually learning, then you're gonna have times where you have to become a beginner again. That's just life. So that's not a unique to programming thing. Still, it can be frustrating to be there. So especially when you just want to make a game, but now it's hard because you have to deal with object-oriented programming. So fair enough.
Happy to say that they can code a website and leave it at that. These people still have a chance of reintegrating with normal society and still having a normal life.
Okay. So, and again, I know he's saying this in jest. I'm definitely overanalyzing it being pedantic, but that's the point. I think he's raising a lot of really interesting points that are worth talking about. So the idea that you're not a real programmer if you make video games is stupid, frankly. Not that he's stupid. It's just that if you make video games, that is 100% real programming. Even if you use blueprints in like Unreal Engine or something, that is absolutely programming, and it is real. The skills you learn there transfer almost one-to-one, if not exactly one-to-one, in regular programs. So learning to make games is actually a great way to learn to program because it's more fun, so you're probably going to be more motivated if you like that kind of thing. But yeah, the idea that making video games or making websites is not real programming is just goofy to me. That said, Wix, if you're not using the developer mode to actually write code and stuff, just like drag and dropping things onto a website, yeah, that's not programming. 100% agree with you on that.
And you can now program an actual application without needing a game engine or a YouTube tutorial.
Okay, just harping on this a little bit more. So the needing a game engine to write a game and saying that that's not real programming because you used a game engine is kind of like saying using Visual Studio Code to write the code is not real programming because you're not writing it in Notepad. Like how primitive does it have to be before it counts as programming? I don't think they're like if you're making code that you write, you're a programmer. It's that simple. Doesn't mean you're good at it. Sure, okay, fine. You may not be an amazing programmer, but like there's nothing about you using a game engine or similar thing that is not real programming. And again, I know he's joking, but still.
But some people will press on to level 4. Level 4, real program. And you can now program an actual application without needing a game engine or a YouTube tutorial. You've likely gone to university to study computer science.
I'd be curious what he means by an actual application, because games are very much actual applications. It's like a multi-billion-dollar industry, so you can't tell me it's not real. And there's a lot of code involved. So I don't know what he means by an actual application that runs without a game engine, because game engines, you can compile the code and then run it. So maybe he's just assuming you haven't been compiling it so far, in which case, okay, I get more where he's coming from. That said, my experience teaching college students has been that professors are not that great at actually preparing you for real life applications. I know a lot of people who get to a corporate job and they're like, oh, this is totally different from college, because it is. College is like, here's the idea of programming. Here's kind of how it works theoretically. And they might have like a little brief mention of, and here's how you make a program so that you can compile it onto other computers or something, or build it in a way that it can run on multiple computers, whatever. But pretty much every big corporation has some kind of fancy build platform. A lot of them build their own in-house one, but usually you're going to be using some kind of either very complex framework or very complex development environment, IDE, something like that, that is helping you write the code in a very similar way to a game engine doing that for you. What a game engine really is handling for you that you truly don't have to handle is rendering a 3D object, if it's a 3D game engine. And the reason you don't really need to worry about that is because that's a math problem that people solved like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, something like that. I mean, there's people still working on that problem, and you totally can go into that. But if you're not wanting to maximize the number of vertices on a 3D model that can be run with, you know, at least 60 frames per second, if you don't really care about that, you just want to make the thing show up on the screen, learning the details of how to render a 3D model on the screen, it's a lot. Like it's a whole field in and of itself. So I don't know. I think he's underselling the amount of skill it takes to use a game engine to make a game. And it's worth a lot more, and college is very overrated when it comes to programming. It's useful. Like the main thing I think you get out of a programming degree, at least I can say based on when I was going to college, I think college has gotten worse over the years since then. I see it in what kind of help people need in their programming classes. I'm finding that more and more as someone who trains software engineers, what I'm doing is giving them the knowledge that their college classes didn't give them so that they can actually do their jobs. It's usually that kind of stuff. So I would personally switch being a game developer and college on his list. And I think he's kind of just giving his story of the steps he went through. But I would put it as college is less real programming than making a game. That is what I've seen in the people I know and what I've experienced in my own life. Very interested to hear what you guys think in the comments.
Instead of listening to a YouTube tutorial, you have to read documentation.
I hate documentation. I hate it. My number one use for ChatGPT in programming is to replace my need for reading the documentation. I'm just like, hey, summarize this for me, and then I move on. The problem with documentation is it's written by people who don't want to write it 99 times out of 100. There are some exceptions, and of those exceptions, of the 1% of documentation documentation that's written by people who want to write it, at least 50%, if not more, of that is written by people who are way too excited to write it and go into all sorts of details that you really don't need. Trying to quickly find a concise answer to any given question is almost impossible with documentation. Again, maybe your mileage varies. I know some people really like documentation, like reading documentation and stuff. Some people are really good at it. It's just, I think for most regular humans, it's not something that is, it kind of just stinks. That's basically where I'm going. So if I'm reading the actual documentation for a function in some library, it's like a last ditch effort. I've searched and searched on Google, I've asked ChatGPT, nothing's working, and I just can't find the answer anywhere. So then I'm like, fine, I'll go to the actual documentation. And almost every time I go to the documentation for the thing that's not working or doesn't make sense, and the documentation doesn't even address the problem I'm having. So it's like, yeah, documentation is, even when it's done well, it's just not done well. And I don't have a solution for it, so I'm just griping. Maybe I'll find a solution someday, but it's just like, yeah, not a fan.
Probably. It's been around 3 months since you've spoken to a female, and if you smell your armpit, yep, you fit the stereotype.
You don't have to, guys. Just shower. just take a shower or a bath or whatever. Put on some deodorant. You don't have to be the stereotype. It doesn't matter if you're fat. It doesn't matter if you're skinny. It doesn't matter if you are whatever. You just don't have to fit that stereotype. Okay. And again, I know this is in jest, so don't think I'm being like angry with him or something.
5. Professional programmer. So you finished your university degree and you finally landed a job as a programmer.
You do not need a degree to get a job as a programmer. You really don't. It can help in some ways, and some companies will specifically look for it, but that's getting less and less because university degrees are less and less valuable as time goes on. Just because the fact of the matter is people with university degrees are not living up to the hype, essentially. So I think the university system is just kind of busted right now and needs a reset. But anyway, that's a whole other thing and goes on to a gajillion topics I just don't want to talk about on this channel. But I have not been impressed with the teaching level that I have seen coming out of universities. That's what I'll say. As someone who trains software engineers for a living, university is not doing a good job and it needs to be fixed.
You're in some team working on a large project and you're probably earning a fair bit of cash. You actually have a purpose. You're an important member of society. 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 Level 6.
Yeah, not much to add on the corporate thing. I think he said everything that needs to be said. I have no notes there. It's accurate as well.
No, screw that. You're now up at 4 AM grinding leak code or code forces problems until your arms fall off. All you care about is Optimus Prime. All you care about is optimization. Programming is not a skill anymore, it's an addiction. And just like a drug, you need it to even feel normal again.
I guess I never got there. Optimization has no appeal to me. It's like necessary sometimes, so if I need to do it, I'll do it. But optimization to me is just annoyingly tedious.
7. Elite coder. You are now a world-class programmer. You exude a potent, unholy musk, a complex blend of energy drink sweat and 3-days-old pizza grease.
No! Don't do it. Also, smelling bad does not make you a good programmer. I would say quite the opposite, to be frank.
Rumor has it, this aroma keeps the bugs out of your code. You can't remember the last time you've seen a woman in real life, and you're starting to think that maybe they were just a conspiracy invented by non-coders to get you to stop coding.
Man, that was very funny. That was very funny. Obviously, that whole level was a joke. I don't really know what to say about it other than your body odor is not how you measure your programming skills. Hopefully you know that, though. Oh man. I'll have a link to this video down below so you can check out the whole thing for yourself. It's actually very short, I just realized. So my raw recording is about 5 or 6 times as long. So yeah, takeaways. I would say I disagree with most of his ordering of the list, but also there's a lot of truth to it. And obviously, like he's being quite sarcastic and it's very funny. College is not necessary for programming. It can help, but it might not be worth it for the debt, honestly, especially depending on how expensive your college is. If you find a college degree that you can pay for reasonably, then I would say like go for it if it's something you really want. If you're just not really sure, I wouldn't bother, just teach yourself. Some people need a college environment to learn well. Some people don't do so well in a college environment. So a lot of it comes down to knowing yourself and doing what works best for you. That said, I would warn you as someone who spends a lot of time teaching people who are fresh out of college or going through college, the learning part of college, at least for programming, is basically you're paying someone lots of money to tell you a book to pay lots of money for, and then you just go through the book. Or they just have a bunch of online lectures you watch and then they don't really interact with you much. Like it's not like you're paying for someone to actually teach or train you. You can get the same level of programming experience and knowledge from just teaching yourself. Not to mention, the first year of having a programming job pretty much anywhere is more valuable than 4 years at college in terms of how much you actually learn. Unless you're the kind of person who like really thrives in college. Like there's gonna be exceptions, but as a general rule for regular people, this is what I see. This is what I see for a lot of people. So yeah, take that for what you will. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you like his videos, you should like and subscribe them too. This was very funny, and the Unqualified Tutor, that's his channel name. Dude, you got a great comedic delivery. I really enjoyed that video. But yeah, like and subscribe. I think I already said that. If you want to support the channel, I actually am an author as well. I have some short stories, working on some Pathfinder 2nd edition / D&D 5th edition supplemental books for making things cooler. At least I feel like it's cooler. So if that sounds interesting to you, I've got affiliate links down in the description below where you can check them out. No pressure, of course. That's just if you want to support the channel, if that's the kind of thing you're interested in. Regardless, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, I'll see you later.